All right, it's the top of the hour, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm Kaylee Hansen with SVA Consulting, and joining me today is Austin, who is our Customer Success Manager. So I'll kind of walk through today's webinar, and then any questions that you have that come up as we go through the presentation today, please feel free to drop those in the chat, and Austin will be monitoring that chat. We can address your questions at the time. Otherwise, we'll have a designated Q&A session at the end as well. So with that, we can go ahead and get started. So today's webinar topic is part 3 of our proactive accounting series. So we have today's topic being all around Acumatica's CRM and specifically how that can be advantageous for accountants specifically. So we'll walk through some of those components today. I will also note we do have some dedicated CRM webinars that will dive a little bit deeper, but this will focus primarily on some of those components specifically as they relate to the accounting side as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. So just looking at today's agenda, first, we'll spend a little time in the slide deck, just one slide, walking through some of those benefits. So how can we see benefits from Acumatica's CRM and customer portal aspects come into play primarily on that accounting side as well? Then we'll get into the demonstration. So we'll highlight a couple different features within the CRM, taking into account how we can have some of those 360-degree views of customers within the system, centralized activity tracking, and then a streamlined opportunity to cash flow as well. And then we'll take a look at the customer portal as well. So kind of an add-on to some of the CRM functionality where customers can begin to self-service different areas within the system specific to some of their customer data management, document access, and payment as well. And then we'll just wrap up with our Q&A and then any next steps from there. So diving right in, we're going to take a look at, again, the integrated ERP and CRM components, how it specifically helps improve financial efficiency, accuracy, potential forecasting, as well as client engagement and streamlined billing. So just taking a look at some of these benefits, the first one being that we'll focus on is the centralized and 360-degree view of the customer. So how this can be a benefit when working within an integrated ERP and CRM system is you have visibility into the customer throughout the entire customer lifecycle. So you don't have multiple systems, different teams managing different systems for some of the sales aspects versus some of the customer and receivables aspect. Instead, you have it all in a centralized location. And with that is centralized activity tracking. So in that case, you can have people within different business units in your organization tracking activities for a specific account or customer, and then those can be reflected all the way through to your accounting side as well. So we'll see that in action today, but one kind of key component and benefit there. The next has to do with some of the cash flow forecasting and optimization. So we'll take a look at these components as well. But you can have visibility into some of those active opportunities, which help feed, what does your expected revenue look like and when. So we can take a look at what that sales pipeline may look like to help feed some of that cash flow forecasting based on, again, that opportunity amount and expected close dates there. And then we'll also dive into the streamlined opportunity to cash flow. So all in one system, some of your sales team can be working on an opportunity, and that can flow directly through the entire system to the invoicing side as well. So we'll see that in action. Next is the improved customer maintenance. So we'll take a look at the customer self-servicing portal, but that's where customers can go, log in, and maintain some of that customer information. So rather than having to individually reach out to customers anytime, maybe they have address changes, email changes, new contacts added into the organization, less maintenance on your side, but rather inviting the customer to self-service some of those areas so that your customer records are always up to date and accurate. And then we also will see that theme of the centralized activity tracking, so help reducing some of those repeat tasks, maybe between your accounting team versus some of your operational team, anything they may hear from the customer, any updates. Again, those can all be centralized, so you're not repeating those tasks or asking the customer, for example, for multiple different updates at once. And then lastly, we'll look at some of the streamlined billing and cash collection. So we've seen some of these in past webinars, things like our payment links, our automated notifications, but today we'll highlight specifically the customer portal and how customers could log in and self-service those payments. Again, so some of that burden is off of your accounting team specifically. So those are kind of 4 main themes that we'll walk through today, and really some of the advantages that we see within this kind of integrated ERP and CRM that Acumatica has specific to the accounting side. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get into the software. We'll spend most of the time there today. So I'll transition into Acumatica. All right, perfect. So we'll take a look at some of those components, and really I'm just logged into Acumatica, and the place I want to start is what we have here in this customer view dashboard. So this is a really good example of how we can start to see some of that 360-degree view of the organization, as well as the specific customers. So we have access into some of the sales side, so some of the open opportunities that you have within the organization, late orders, for example. And then we can also see aspects relating to, the invoicing and receivables side. So anything that's overdue AR, credit extended, et cetera. And then also that support side as well. So kind of the full look of that customer, all the way from maybe the pre-sale side to the sales and operations side with those orders, to the invoicing and receivables, and then customer support thereafter as well. So this is kind of this out of the box view. And then I can go ahead and filter by a specific customer as well. So I can go ahead and maybe I'll just take a look at this Brightwave Enterprises customer. And once I do, we'll see my dashboard changes. So I can see that information specific to Brightwave in this sense. So I can just see, some trends based on, how much they're purchasing each month, some items that they're purchasing. And then all of those metrics on the left-hand side are specific to Brightwave now as well. So anything that's open on their account, and then that receivable side comes into play as well. And then one additional area we have here is any recent activities. So I can see, okay, what were the activities that were against this customer? What happened recently? So we'll drill down into these, but this dashboard view just gives a big overview look of that specific customer, what's going on with their account. And then that can help feed some of your decision making on the accounting side as well as the operational side based on some of these trends and activities, for example. So that's kind of the place I wanted to start. And now we'll dive a little bit deeper into some of the CRM components specific to the customer side. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my opportunities workspace here. And with the CRM module, we have a new profile called business accounts. So business accounts help kind of aggregate all of our different types of accounts within the system, being customers, vendors, as well as prospects. So those that you have not done business with yet. But this view gives kind of that full list of accounts within the system and can be a really good landing spot when looking at specific accounts and really anything that's touching them, any activities, any transactions, etc. So this is just my business account inquiry. I can go ahead and filter, for example, for just my customer. And then there's just my customer listing on this side. And then I'd have different side panel views in this view as well. So I can have this business accounts kind of drill down view that will give, that drill down into that specific account. But then I also have areas specific to both the receivable side as well as the sales side as well. So this is relating to some of the maintenance. I can see the contacts against that account. I can see any marketing campaigns they might be a part of, any active opportunities that are on that specific customer. And then I can also see those metrics related to the receivable side. So what is their open balance? What is their overdue balance? What does that invoice history look like, as well as the payment history? Again, all of this is drillable. And so really the advantage here, I can scroll through, maybe just take a look at all of these and scroll through that left-hand side. And again, we'll see that that right-hand side is then updating. So this business accounts view is really a good centralized view of all of this information as well. So we'll work primarily with my Brightwave Enterprises today. And so this is a customer account. We can see it's an active customer within my system. And this looks a little bit specific to our customer screen as well. So I can always go into that that view will look a little bit different than that full business account view. That business account view, again, will bring in some of those CRM components into that. So if I just go back into that business account, we'll see all of those areas that we kind of highlighted in that side panel view as well, in addition to some other areas. So I can see, like I said, anything that's going on the sales side. So I can see things like, oh, it looks like they have 2 open opportunities. This one is in, a specific probability of closing, and what does that amount look like? So we'll take a look into some of that on the cash flow management side as well. But then again, all of these orders that they have against them, whatever metrics they may have, this is kind of a centralized view for that. And then really the area I wanted to highlight, and one of the main advantages, is this activities field. So this is where I can have the full log of activities that are happening within the system. And if you just take a look at some of these different types of activities, you'll notice pretty quickly that it may be different types of people touching this account in different areas or aspects, or different teams within your organization. So right away, I see, an email went out to them to tell them, their invoice is due in 15 days. So that's more on the accounting side, more on the invoicing side. But then there's also activities related to, okay, hey, they have, a new opportunity that might come in. They're expecting about 20K in sales. So that may be specific to the opportunity, as you can see as well. So again, the advantage here is you can have centralized activity tracking, and that can help feed some of the decision making as it comes to that customer. So maybe you on the accounting side, want to reach out to them for a specific reason, for a specific invoice, whatever the case may be. But then you also see, hey, they have an open opportunity that, maybe $20,000. So instead of having, some of that missing knowledge from some other teams within your organization, you may have that going into some of those conversations with customers, for example. So we can see just the different types of activities there. But again, all of them, whether they're on an opportunity, whether they're on a sales order, an invoice, a payment, whatever the case may be, all of those activities can roll up to this account itself to, again, have that centralized view within the system. All right, so it's kind of one main advantage there. And then I'm going to go ahead and go into another dashboard view, and this will start to give some of that information relating to how we can start to use the CRM module on the accounting side, perhaps, to look at what's forecasted, what may be coming in, what type of revenue might I be recognizing, and when, some of that forecasting into that accounting side. So this is just a salesperson dashboard, but what we could do is something like bring in some of these views into more of an accounting looking dashboard as well. So as an accountant or whatever role you have within the organization, you may have an area related to forecasting, and that may be coming from that CRM side to say, okay, what are the opportunities? What are those opportunities worth? What is the opportunity amount and expected date on that? So in this case, we can see that I have, $67,000 sitting in my pipeline that are in the solution stage. So that may be, they're closer to closing, and I could drill down into that as well. And so that will give me access into, okay, there's $21,000 in this specific opportunity. I could drill down further. And then I can start to see things like, okay, what's that estimated close date? So this looks like it passed. I'll change it a little bit. But that's where you can start to see, hey, based on the information that my sales team is putting into the system, I start to have a little bit of a forecasted view into what might be coming our way in terms of the cash flow side. So that gives a little bit of visibility there as well. So a couple of things on that side that kind of relate and correlate between the two types of teams. All right. And then next, we'll just walk through how we can start to see some of that streamlined flow, specifically stemming from people on the sales side, how that can flow pretty seamlessly to other individuals in the organization, all the way to that invoicing side for the receivables. So I went ahead and I already created the opportunity. I'm assuming this team likely wouldn't be going through that full opportunity creation. But again, we do have other webinars that walk through this in a little bit more detail if you're interested. But here I just have, we're working with that same account. So I have an opportunity on this account. Likely my sales team put it in. And you can see that they have, an expected total of $24,000 for just this spring bulk order that Brightwave Enterprises expects to have. And so here's an activity that my sales team added. And again, we saw that roll up to that business account level for that visibility. All right, and I can go into my details tab here. And this is where they started to fill out some of those details to say, hey, they're going to order, 40 of these Dell desktop computers, maybe for an office revamp or whatever the case may be. So they went ahead and added that in. Again, this would likely be your sales team, but I'll just kind of walk through this process here so we can see how it fully integrates and flows through to the accounting side. So your sales team may go in and create a sales quote that they may send out to that customer. So I'll go ahead and walk through that process. So you'll see that opportunity flow directly into the quote, and then they could go ahead and send this out to the customer. We'll let that process there. That's going to be added as an activity as well. So you can start to see, what types of maybe products they're purchasing, how much they're typically spending, what that date looks like, and maybe how that aligns with what's already open on the accounts receivable side. But there, that quote went out. Again, it's tracking that activity that they have a quote that's available to them. So again, this is likely still kind of the sales side working through this, but maybe it's been accepted and they want to go ahead and convert it to an order. So we'll create that. And so it's going to flow all the way from the opportunity to the quote to the order. Maybe a different team is picking it up at this sense, maybe more the operations side, but you'll see that it flows directly. And kind of the advantage there is we're not working in multiple systems. We're not working across multiple systems and multiple teams to kind of make sure that information aligns, but rather it can flow directly. You can have different people touching it at different points in time. But you do kind of reduce the need for any manual entry, any potential errors in terms of, what they negotiated versus what they're actually ordering, et cetera. And then that will flow all the way to the invoicing side as well. So we don't really need, a separate process for some of the ordering and invoicing than we do from that CRM. But again, it flows seamlessly, that timeline, that cadence, those amounts are all kind of in the same system, flowing seamlessly. Again, to reduce some of that manual entry, and then those are always more prone to error as well. So I could quickly ship this. Again, this would likely be some of your operations side, your warehousing side. So I won't walk through this in too much depth. We can go ahead, create a shipment, for example. And then from here, we're going to go ahead and invoice it as well. So again, maybe your warehousing team walking through this step. Change this warehouse here. Let's go back to sales order. Sorry about that. All right, let me remove that shipment quick. I had a lot tracking on there for that, but we can go ahead with the shipment for now. And we could go ahead and invoice it directly from that sales order. Oops. Let's try this process again quickly. We'll go back into that opportunity. We'll go ahead and create that invoice from there. All right. All right, so we'll just add those items in. Let a different one here. And we'll walk through that process pretty quickly. Create that order. Shipment. All right. Kind of repeating that process there. Sorry about that. We'll use an item that's not serial tracked in this sense. All right. Perfect. And then we can go ahead and prepare the invoice. There we go. And so this is now flowing over to the accounting side, to that invoicing side. It's preparing that invoice. So again, consistency all the way from that opportunity to the quote, to the order, and now to the invoice. So we'll save it there. You'll see, again, brought over all of that information. That quantity of 5, in this sense, shampoos came over all the way, again, from that opportunity side. So now you'll start to see those benefits of how having that system, can streamline that whole process versus, again, working in multiple systems, multiple different touch points and teams. And then throughout all of those different stages and transactions, we can see that activity tracking come and roll all the way up onto that account as well. So those are some of the highlights on the CRM side. And then we're going to migrate a little bit and change into our customer portal. So now I'm going to log into our customer portal. It's going to be on behalf of the customer. So we'll work again with this Brightwave Enterprises customer, and we'll log in as one of their contacts underneath them. So here again is my Brightwave. And then if I go to my contacts, we'll see that primary contact is Sam Johnson. So I'm going to log into the portal as Sam Johnson. And once I do, we're going to highlight those different areas of, managing their customer profile information, things such as viewing statements and documents, and then we'll walk through the payment process as well. All right, so I'm going to exit out of here and we're going to log in to the portal as Sam Johnson. And once I do, this is kind of a landing spot for what the customer may see. So we'll let that load for a second here. And so this is a little bit tailorable to you guys. So this is just out of the box what a customer may see. These kind of landing pages or dashboard views could be specific. So we could build different views that serve more as a landing page that maybe look and feel more similar to what you would want displayed on the portal for your customers. So here's just Sam's portal logging in. So I can go ahead and go to this profile section. And so this is where we can start to leverage the customer portal for maintaining company information. So you may or may not want them to be able to edit all of these fields. That's something we could work through with the security. But if they have a new address, maybe they change addresses or a new email or phone number, they could go in and adjust that company profile information on their end. And then that would obviously show up within the backend of Acumatica as well. So they're able to start to self-service some of those areas so that you can ensure that your customer information is always current and up to date and accurate. They could also manage their contacts. So they do have the ability to add new contacts. So maybe if someone new was working within the organization, they could go ahead and add that new contact, fill that out for you so that you're aware of that. And again, it's centralized location. So maybe we'll add in. They have a new purchasing manager. And they could go ahead and add in some of that information. And I can go ahead and save it. And then there we'll see that contact will flow into the backend as well. So again, managing things like contacts, managing things like some of that default profile information as well to ensure it's always accurate. And then they also have access into different areas such as their statements and documents. So while you may have these automated and going out to your customer for visibility into their statements, into their invoices, orders, etc., the customer portal is a good landing spot for that as well. So you can have these displayed within the portal. And so instead of maybe reaching out to you to say, hey, can you resend an invoice? Can you resend a statement? Rather, they can go in, log into the portal and see that right away. So here I can see that statement balance is 110,000, and then 108 of that is overdue. So they have visibility into some of those aspects, again, without needing to maybe reach out to you to resend these once it's sent initially. And same thing goes for their documents. So here are just all of the documents that are against their account. So that would be corresponding with those transactions in Acumatica. So this is things like my invoices and payments, and then I can go ahead and drill down into that as well. So here I can see all records, and one of the advantages on kind of the customer end is all of these inquiry screens and access and abilities that you guys have in the back end, they could begin to use those as well. So things like filtering, only want to see anything that's open, for example, they could do so as well. They do have another tab for open documents. But this will just give them access into all of their invoices. So if I just wanted to filter, that due date for descending or maybe ascending, I could go ahead and see that. So I'll see I have one that was due in September of last year. So probably want to pay attention to that. Probably want to pay that pretty soon. So I can drill down into that invoice. And once I do, it's just going to show that invoice form that you send out to your customers today. So it's going to match that form that's sent out to them, likely via email. But then again, they have access to that all throughout the portal. So here's an example of what that looks like. And then if you did leverage any of the contract management in Acumatica, you can have that access to the customer as well within the portal. So they could take a look at their contract, any invoices generated from that contract, for example. All of that can be shown to the customer within the portal as well. So there's that centralized location and visibility. All right. We won't touch some of the orders and support side today. We do have a separate webinar dedicated to the customer portal itself that does walk through all of those capabilities. So I'd recommend checking that out if you're interested. But the main area that will kind of wrap up on the portal side has to do with the payments. So again, in previous webinars, we saw the Acumatica payments feature for click-to-pay options, but then we'll also see how that's a little different from the portal. So in the customer portal, they also have the ability to view their invoices and self-service those payments. So we'll take a look at what that process looks like as well. So the first component is their payment methods. So they can go ahead and manage some of their payment methods. So you can add credit cards, you could add ACH or EFT payments as well. And so once a customer adds any of this information on their account, that's going to be an available payment method for you in the back end as well. So they could go ahead, add this in, they can use that then moving forward on the portal. And then, like I said, those can be used within the back end from your team as well. So that's kind of the starting point, is managing their payment methods. And then the next will be managing their payments. So when I go into this payments tab, this is just going to show what are all of those open invoices against this customer. And then you'll see there's things such as conditional formatting to show, has that due date passed? If so, it's going to start to highlight those. And it's automatically, kind of putting some of those up front that they should start to pay attention to first. So here I can see that auto selected just those overdue invoices, but the customer has the ability, to kind of select all, select none, just select which ones they want to pay as well. So I might just pay these latest 3. I can select that, and then the customer has the ability to select which payment method they're going to use for this payment as well. So in this case, I'll keep it at that Visa. If they needed a new card or new account added at the time of payment, they could go ahead and add that as well, and that will be saved as a payment method moving forward. I'll just select these 3. Again, if I drill down into that, it's going to show that printed form of what that specific invoice looks like as well. So all looks good, and I'm going to go ahead and process this payment. Pretty large payment on this credit card, but it looks like Sam Johnson is fine with that for now. So we'll go ahead and process that. Perfect. That came over. And now we're going to go back into the back end just to see how some of those changes came over. So we'll take a look at that customer profile information and that new contact that we added. And then we'll also take a look at that payment. Perfect. And if I just return back to my payments tab, you'll see that those payments fell off that list. Since they already made the payment, they're no longer outstanding invoices for them. All right, so I'm going to go back into my backend instance here. We'll leave that. Sign back in. So now this is likely your team taking a look at that. So here I'm logging back into the backend, and if I go into my Brightwave Enterprises customer, I can see that new contact that was added. So Ellen was added by Sam within the portal, so that flowed automatically into the backend. So I don't have to, again, maintain a lot of that information myself. And then I can go into my payments as well. And we'll see that that payment was created for Brightwave for that $95,000 on this side as well. And then which invoices it was connected to. So it closed out those invoices, created that payment, and then it also closed out that payment. And then we'll see that reference number attached as well. So that's kind of the full process and the areas we wanted to focus on for today. But again, you'll start to see some of that correlation between the CRM components and how that can flow all the way into the accounting side, how that can start to benefit your team, both on the portal side, so letting the customer self-service a lot of those components, as well as some of that cash flow forecasting, that streamlined opportunity cash flow, all in a centralized location as well. And then, of course, that activity tracking throughout the entire customer journey, being able to manage all those activities, see those across your team members, and then perhaps make more informed decisions from there to manage that specific account. So that's kind of the main areas. So I'm going to go back next into my slide deck. And we'll just kind of end with a little bit of a wrap up. All right, so I didn't see any questions flow into the chat, but if you do have any open questions, definitely feel free to chat those in there, and we'll address those as we wrap up today. But a couple of things I want to highlight. So if you were interested in what you saw here, you want to reach out to us, you definitely can. So you can visit our website or contact us at contact@sva.com or tech support@sva.com, and we can kind of triage those accordingly. You can also reach out directly to Austin or myself, and we're happy to kind of coordinate from there. If you're also interested in different types of webinar topics, we're always open to feedback. So if you have anything that you really want us to cover in upcoming webinars, reach out and we'll try to incorporate that into our schedule as well. We talked a little bit about some of those more CRM specific webinars. There's also the part 1 and 2 of this Proactive Accountant series. So if you missed any of those and you're interested in viewing them, They're on our YouTube channel under SVA Consulting and then the Acumatica webinar series. And then next month's webinar in April is on April 23rd, and that's all about Acumatica's 25R1 release. So a lot of new features coming within that release that we'll cover in that webinar. So I definitely invite you guys to tune in, invite your organization. That's always a popular one. And you can scan that QR code below, and that will automatically help prompt you to log in or sign up for that webinar as well. And then lastly, there's just that Acumatica community link. So with that new release coming out, within the Acumatica community, there's a spot for you to post different ideas for upcoming releases. So that's kind of one component that we see a lot of people active within the community. You can post new ideas, upload those, and then we'll see a lot of those flow into future releases as well. But it's also a good spot just to see what other people are doing within the community in different aspects there. So kind of three main areas that we invite you to explore. But with that, I don't think we saw any additional chats come through. But thank you all for your time today, and we hope to see you on April 23rd for that upgrade webinar. Thank you.